Let's cross to President Cyril Ramaphosa live from Parliament.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Honorable members, we do remind you, as we normally do, to settle down in the seat allocated to you and keep your mask on. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 1, the Presidency Appropriation Bill.
Honorable members, I now wish to call the President to open the debate from the virtual platform. Welcome, Mr. President.
Honorable Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Deputy President David Dabete Mabuza, honorable members, ministers, distinguished guests, and fellow South Africans. 25 years ago, the elected representatives of the people of South Africa gathered in this very assembly to adopt the first democratic constitution in our country's history. In welcoming this historic moment, President Nelson Mandela said, "The new constitution obliges us to strive to improve the quality of life of the people. Our national consensus," he continued, "recognizes that there is nothing else that can justify the existence of government but to redress the centuries of unspeakable privations by striving to eliminate poverty, illiteracy, homelessness, and disease. It is this obligation that guides, that also informs and inspires the work of the Presidency of the Republic of South Africa. Our democratic constitution vests the executive authority of the Republic in the President. It requires that the President take responsibility, working alongside ministers, for implementing legislation, for developing policy, and for coordinating the functions of state departments and administrations in the interests of the people of our beautiful country. In short, the Constitution confers on the Presidency the responsibility of leading a capable developmental state. It is exactly 10 years since the National Planning Commission released a diagnostic report that led to the development of the National Development Plan. The report flagged lack of coordination within government as one of the reasons for failure to implement our progressive policies. A year later, the National Development Plan introduced the concept of a capable state, a capable developmental state. A capable state is a critical aspect to development and service delivery, and to strengthening cooperative governance, a core principle of our Constitution. Advancing an ethical, capable, and developmental state is therefore a key priority of ours. This follows a prolonged period in which state capacity was severely weakened and several state institutions frayed from their mandates. A capable state is a state that is well run, that is well managed, with clear lines of responsibility and accountability by all the actors in the state. Actions in a capable state are effectively aligned with intentions. In a capable state, programs at national, provincial, and local government level are well synchronized with each other. Resources are used to their best effect and not wasted. In a capable state, policymaking is coherent and it is evidence-based. This begins with translating the electoral mandate of the governing party into key outcomes. To refine policymaking, a capable state draws on the respective strengths and capabilities in both the state itself and in society to support the national development agenda. This helps us to refine governance and develop innovative approaches to challenges. In a capable state, there is accountability and oversight across all spheres of government, yes, driven by the presidency. It is for this reason that I have signed individual performance agreements with ministers that outline their responsibilities and their performance indicators in line with the medium-term strategic framework. In support of our commitment to transparency and open government, these performance agreements are now available to the public online. In a capable state, public servants and executive authorities are ethical, experienced, skilled, and work selflessly for the people of South Africa. To attract and retain a core of dedicated civil servants, we are committed to lifelong learning, regularly skilling staff, and providing the necessary orientation to entrance to the public service. That is why we are strengthening the work of the National School of Government and finalizing a framework of the professionalization of our public service. In a capable state, resources are used for the benefit of the people and not for self-enrichment. Since the start of this sixth administration, we have worked to realign the presidency so that it may more effectively drive the transformation of our society and economy. We have sought to strengthen and better equip the presidency to direct the program of government and to coordinate its implementation. It is our firm conviction and intention that the presidency must become the heartbeat of a capable and developmental state. This budget vote is therefore about how the presidency is working to achieve that goal. The main focus of our work as the presidency is to give meaning and substance to cooperative and integrated government, but also to unleash all the capabilities to be found both in the state and through building partnerships across society as we build a capable and developmental state. By drawing on the resources and capabilities in and beyond the state, whether in the civil service, executive authority, the civil society, academia, labor, business, or developmental agencies, we continue to enrich the work of the presidency. Unleashing these capabilities inherent in the state and partnerships has helped us to refine governance, to advance evidence-driven policy making, and to develop an innovative approach to challenges. This approach is evident in several areas of our work, from our response to the coronavirus pandemic to the preparation of the infrastructure pipeline, from the development of our economic recovery plan to the implementation of our investment drive, from tackling gender-based violence and femicide to charting a just transition to a low-carbon economy. Deputy Speaker, in the State of the Nation address in February, I said that one of our foremost priorities for 2021 is to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. This is essential for the restoration of the health and well-being of all South Africans, for the recovery of our economy, for the creation of employment, and to address many of the ills that confront our communities. From the outset, the National Coronavirus Command Council, which I chair, has coordinated our national response to the pandemic. It has been guided by the advice of experts in various disciplines and fields, and has worked together with leaders in different spheres of government, also leaders of labor, business, religious leaders, traditional leaders, sports leaders, and many others. In conditions of great uncertainty, where knowledge about the nature and the cause of the disease has been limited, we have worked together as a society to limit infections, to save lives, and to protect our people's livelihoods. Now, through these efforts, we have largely managed to protect our health facilities from being overrun and have implemented unprecedented economic and social support measures to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on the most vulnerable in society. Through the collective efforts of all social partners, we have embarked on a mass vaccination program that aims to reach well over 40 million people in our country. This extraordinary effort is being coordinated by the Interministerial Committee on Vaccines that is chaired by the Deputy President. It brings together all relevant departments to streamline decision-making and ensure effective coordination of a massive logistical undertaking. Despite the several challenges that have delayed the vaccine rollout, and there have been many of which have not been our own doing, the public vaccination drive is now gathering speed, pace, and momentum. Within the last 48 hours, we passed a significant milestone. More than 1 million people in South Africa have now received a vaccine dose. As we accelerate the rollout of vaccines, we continue to engage various manufacturers to ensure a reliable and diverse supply of vaccines. We therefore welcome the news that the World Health Organization has validated the Sinovac from China COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use. This is a crucial step that should allow our own Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAPRA, to expeditiously consider the application from Sinovac. No country in the world has been spared the effects of the virus, demonstrating how interconnected and how interdependent we all are across the world. It has also shown that no country can hope to overcome the pandemic working and acting alone. As a country and as a government, we have therefore been involved in efforts across our continent and in the broader international community to forge a common purpose. During our chairship of the African Union, we led the development and implementation of a continent-wide COVID-19 strategy. We appointed special envoys, one of whom was a former finance minister, Trevor Manuel, working together with many others from various countries to mobilize funding for the continental response and actively lobbied the G20, the international financial institutions, and other international bodies for comprehensive financial support and debt relief for African countries. Through the African Medical Supplies Platform that we set up, as well as the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, which we also set up, we led innovative efforts to secure essential medical supplies and vaccines for all African countries. And I wish to pay tribute to my fellow African leaders and to the scientists, health workers, business leaders, development agencies, financial institutions, and civil society leaders who worked together with us to protect African lives and livelihoods. And this work continues. These efforts demonstrate what is possible when African countries work together, when we draw on our collective resources and capabilities, and when we speak with one voice on the global stage. Following the completion of our term as AU Chair, we've been given the responsibility of African Union COVID-19 champion to continue to coordinate the continent's response and recovery from COVID-19. We have appointed the Commission on African COVID-19 Response, made up of medical science experts from across our continent, to support our work as the African Union COVID-19 champion. At a global level, South Africa is currently co-chair with the Prime Minister of Norway of the Facilitation Council of the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator. Through this, we are working to ensure equitable access to COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics, and vaccines, largely for developing economy countries, but more especially for our own continent, Africa. We are also leading the campaign alongside India and more than 100 countries for a temporary waiver of the agreement on the trade-related aspects of intellectual property, TRIPS, at the World Trade Organization. Such a waiver would enable countries to manufacture their own vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics at a time when global supply is severely constrained. If it is successful and it is adopted, it will pave the way for the development and growth of local pharmaceutical industries in our own country, on the continent as well, and in other developing countries. This, for us, is critical to the continent's health security. Despite the high burden of disease in Africa, we have to import most of our vaccines, our therapeutics, and other medications. And we find this not acceptable and sustainable. Manufacturing our own vaccines will enable us to overcome the current pandemic and respond to future health emergencies. We are leading a campaign that focuses on the creation of vaccine manufacturing capabilities on the African continent. Our discussions with French President Emmanuel Macron during his state visit to our country last week laid the basis for a three-track approach to supporting effective and equitable global vaccination. First, France affirmed its commitment to work with South Africa, India, and other countries, calling for a limited time-bound waiver for intellectual property rights. Second, France and South Africa would work together to ensure that there are no trade restrictions, such as export bans for raw materials and other exports required for the manufacturing of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. And third, France, together with Germany and the European Union, would support the manufacturing of vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics on the African continent through mobilizing finance as well as technology transfer. Now, this is to be welcomed. We will continue to work with our partners in the international community to secure the health and well-being of all in this country, on our continent, and around the world. And we call on every South African, including the political parties represented in this House, to stand with us in this fight for justice, dignity, and human lives. Deputy Speaker, while we have had to confront the impact of the virus on human health, we have also had to respond to its impact on the country's economy, on businesses, on jobs, and on our people's livelihoods. In the first quarter of 2020, we introduced a comprehensive package of economic and social support measures. This included wage support, expanded protection to our people, small business financing by government, and a loan guarantee scheme to support banking sector lending. The support package helped to shield our society from even greater economic damage and did lay the basis for a more concerted plan to ensure a strong and sustained economic recovery. Additional social grant payments alone reached more than 18 million South Africans, while wage support protected the jobs of almost 5 million workers. Last October, we presented the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan to a joint sitting of Parliament. Recognizing the extraordinary challenge facing our country and the need for rigorous executive oversight of this plan, and drawing on the experience of the National Coronavirus Council, we created a National Economic Recovery Council. This council, which I chair, has given detailed attention to these aspects of the recovery plan that have greatest potential impact. It has enabled us to enhance coordination, identify challenges in implementation, and move to address blockages that we've had in the past. Fundamental to our economic recovery, and indeed to the transformation of our society, is the creation of jobs, especially for young people. The results of the quarterly labor force survey released yesterday for the first quarter of 2021 demonstrate the severe impact that the pandemic has had on employment across the economy. The rising number of unemployed, those who are actively searching for work but cannot find it, represent real people in every part of our country. They include too many of the 18 million young men and women across the country who make up nearly a third of our population. In our villages, in our towns, in our townships and cities, young people are a dynamic force propelling themselves and their communities forward, even in the midst of hardship and numerous obstacles. To ensure that these young people are empowered and equipped with the tools to succeed, we have located the coordination of our efforts to address youth employment in the presidency. 8 months ago, we launched the Presidential Employment Stimulus, the largest and fastest scale-up of public employment in our country's history. Since its inception, this program has been making a difference in the lives of South Africans across the length and the breadth of our country. I speak of Samukulisiwe Linda from KZN, who was retrenched when the pandemic struck last year, but is now employed by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in the Welisizwe Rural Bridges Program. I speak of Noluthando Mpondo from the Free State, who was unemployed for 4 years before she joined a WhatsApp group with other young people who were looking for work and found out about the presidential employment stimulus. She found employment through the stimulus as a primary school teacher assistant and is using her income to support her mother, younger sister, and cousins. We speak here also of several owners of early childhood development centers across the country who are receiving support grants to keep their doors open and pay their staff. We speak of the small-scale and subsistence farmers who've been issued with production input vouchers to keep their businesses afloat or even to expand them. These are South Africans, many of them young, who are now receiving an income, developing new skills, and contributing to their community and their country's economy. Their unflagging optimism, their enduring belief in our country, and their will to succeed despite odds should give us all hope. To date, the presidential employment stimulus has supported nearly 700,000 opportunities. Of these, 420,000 are jobs that have been created or retained. 110,000 are awards issued for livelihoods, support, and a further 162,000 are opportunities where awards are currently in process. We have developed an online dashboard where South Africans can track progress in the implementation of the stimulus, pioneering a new approach to transparency and accountability. The stimulus has played a crucial role in supporting vulnerable households to keep working and earning an income while at the same time benefiting the communities in which they work. It has incubated new approaches to coordination and collaboration across government to achieve a single objective, demonstrating the powerful results of a whole-of-government approach. A further 11 billion rand has been allocated for the continuation of the presidential employment stimulus in the current financial year. Now, critical to the success of the employment stimulus has been the work of the newly established Project Management Office in the Presidency. The PMO, as we call it, supports the delivery of key strategic priorities from the center of government. It works across government to ensure effective coordination while multiple departments and agencies are involved, and provides implementation support where required. In addition to the presidential employment stimulus, the PMO has been integral to the development of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. This program, which was developed before the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, will enter full implementation this year. The backbone of this intervention is a national pathway management network which brings together a wide range of partners from within and beyond government to provide young people with opportunities for learning and for earning. Now, young people can join the network through a dedicated MOBI site or by visiting a labor center or offices of the National Youth Development Agency in all 9 provinces. Once they have joined the network, they will be able to view and access opportunities and to receive active support to participate in the economy. The MOBI site has been 0 rated by all mobile networks and will be officially launched in 2 weeks in time on Youth Day. Among other things, the intervention will support new models of skills training linked to employment in fast-growing sectors to ensure that our skills development system is closely matched to the demand of the economy. Beyond the economic recovery, the presidency has responsibility for driving economic growth and transformation. To provide support for this work, I appointed a Presidential Economic Advisory Council comprised of leading local and international economists and people with other disciplines, which has been hard at work since 2019. The role of the Council is to identify, analyze, and make recommendations to the President on key economic issues facing our country. Through formal meetings, bilateral engagements with ministers and their departments, and open workshops, the Advisory Council has brought insight and expertise to pressing economic policy challenges such as energy reform and fiscal consolidation. The interactions have been informed by extensive research and have provided constructive criticism and encouragement for government's economic policy positions. This Presidential Economic Advisory Council has 6 work streams to align with government's economic priorities. These are macroeconomic dynamics and public investment, poverty and inequality and jobs, agriculture, trade and industrial policy, state capacity and political economy, energy transition and growth, and South Africa's growth narrative. This council is well led by Rinosi Mokate, who chairs the Advisory Council amongst her peers. A central pillar of our economic recovery is a massive infrastructure investment program. The Investment and Infrastructure Office in the Presidency is driving a coordinated government approach to both investment and infrastructure development. The work of this office supported the operationalization of the Infrastructure Fund in August last year. It has also supported the establishment and work of Infrastructure SA, which will enable an integrated approach to the identification, the preparation, the financing, and implementation of major infrastructure projects. Following last year's inaugural Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, a pipeline of 88 projects to the value of more than 2.3 trillion rand were identified. The interest raised by investors in specific projects led to the gazetting of 50 strategic integrated projects in human settlements, student accommodation, transport, water and sanitation, energy, agriculture, and agro-processing, and digital economy. They include the Redstone Renewable Energy Project that, once operational, will supply stable electricity to more than 200,000 homes. The Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has announced 11 preferred bidders for the Emergency Power Procurement Program, totaling nearly 2,000 megawatts of contracted capacity. We expect these projects to bring around 45 billion rand of private sector investment and to create approximately 3,800 jobs during the 18-month construction period. The Investment and Infrastructure Office is also working with the private sector to develop the requisite skills in relation to financial and technical engineering. This will enable us to prepare and package projects that can attract funding and financing. Professionals and experts in project finance, financial structuring of complex infrastructure projects, project management, and infrastructure planning have been seconded to work with the Investment and Infrastructure Office that is led by Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa. This massive infrastructure development effort complements the ambitious investment drive that I launched in 2018 with a view to attract at least 1.2 trillion rand in new investment over 5 years. In support of this drive, we have hosted 3 South Africa investment conferences, which together have raised over 750 billion rand in investment commitments. Now, this is a significant achievement, especially since the 3rd investment conference was held in the midst of the pandemic and the global economic slowdown. As the country emerges from the economic contraction of 2020, the presidency is able to draw on the local and international expertise of members of the Presidential Investment Advisory Council to shape our investment promotion and facilitation drive. At its inaugural meeting in April this year, the Council provided frank feedback to government on how we could improve the investment climate in our country and highlighted opportunities in areas such as in the biomedical, in the green hydrogen, and agro-processing sectors. The Council supplements the activities of our 6 investment envoys, and it is led by Phumzile Langeni as my deputy chair. The investment envoys act as a bridge between government and the investment community. They not only provide guidance for investment mobilization efforts, they also act as global champions for South Africa's investment proposition. To accelerate the policy reform trajectory that we embarked upon before the pandemic, the presidency inaugurated Operation Vulindlela late last year to unlock key economic reforms. A dedicated team has been set up in my office and in the National Treasury, supported in the Treasury by Deputy Minister Masondo. The Vulindlela team is working daily with implementing departments to drive the delivery of priority reforms and build momentum in the reform agenda. Our focus is on a limited number of high-impact reforms in key economic sectors such as energy, water, telecommunications, ports, rail, and immigration. Vulindlela represents a new determination in government to forge ahead with economic reforms, to improve our global competitiveness, to lower costs, and to remove barriers to entry, and to attract investment and create much-needed jobs. It recognizes that the only way to place South Africa on a fundamentally different growth trajectory is to implement structural reforms, many of which have been delayed for far too long in our country. We are making progress on a number of fronts. These include the decision to raise the licensing threshold for embedded generation projects, an accelerated time frame for the completion of digital migration, the publication of a revised critical skills list, and the establishment of a national water resource infrastructure agency to deal with the water challenge that our country faces. Intensive work is currently underway in a number of areas, including enabling third-party access to the freight rail network, improving the efficiency of our ports, which is underway, reviewing the policy framework for skilled people's immigration, and for re-engineering the process for water use and license applications. The work being done in the presidency is about action and not talk. It is about rolling up our sleeves and getting things done in order to accelerate the transformation of our economy. We've built up a truly wonderful team in the presidency that is just focused on making sure that things get done, with a wonderful cooperation across the various spheres of government. The achievement of inclusive growth and social transformation requires state-owned enterprises that effectively fulfill their social and economic mandates in a sustainable manner. While there has been important progress in stabilizing key SOEs, these efforts will not be sufficient on their own to enable these entities to make the vital contribution they can make to our economic and social progress. That is why government envisages a fundamental overhaul of the SOE model to address not only the deficiencies of the immediate past, but also the requirements of national development in the future. The Presidential Review Committee on SOEs laid the foundations for rethinking the role, the governance, and the composition of this crucial portfolio of entities. Through the Presidential SOE Council, we have created a dedicated structure, tapping on the expertise from all society to guide this reform. The SOE Council makes recommendations on overarching frameworks and guiding principles while complementing the work of the boards of specific entities and responsible departments. We envisage an ownership model that clearly separates the responsibility of ownership, policy development and formulation, and regulation. Effective ownership will become more centralized to counter dispersal of SOEs across the state and to ensure more coherence. Such a model will enable greater transparency, accountability, and oversight, and subject all strategic SOEs to more rigorous requirements for financial and operational performance. A clear distinction is to be made between commercial and non-commercial SOEs, and between commercial and non-commercial functions within entities, and the development of funding models that are appropriate to the function. We have developed a new framework for private sector participation that mobilizes additional funding for economically viable infrastructure, that balances risk sharing and does not result in increases in the prices of goods and services. Implementation of the approved standard guidelines on the appointment and remuneration of SOE boards and executives that prioritizes the recruitment and retention of appropriate skills and expertise and competencies. This would include key delineation of authority and responsibility between elected public officials, non-executive directors, and executive leadership. Another area in which the presidency is doing work is on the land issue. The presidency has prioritized accelerated land reform as part of economic and social transformation. It is imperative that land reform should be aimed at redressing the injustices of the past. It must also ensure that the country's land is more productive and is more sustainably managed for the benefit of all South Africans. The Interministerial Committee on Land Reform, which is chaired by the Deputy President, is driving the implementation of the recommendation of the expert advisory panel that I appointed and which has reported on land reform in agriculture. We commend the hard work that has been done and that is now underway in the National Assembly and through public hearings across the country on amendments, possible amendments to Section 25 of the Constitution to enable expropriation of land without compensation and to set out the conditions under which that should happen. As this work nears completion, it is critical that we all remain focused on the great desire for land, particularly among the poor and dispossessed in our country, and that we do everything within our means to address the needs of our people for land. The achievement of a capable and developmental state requires that we decisively defeat corruption in all its forms. If our economy is to thrive, if our people are to be empowered, if poverty is to be defeated, we need to tackle corruption, fraud, and mismanagement in every area of public life. Since the start of this administration, we have taken decisive measures to end state capture and fight corruption. We are steadily and progressively turning the tide, strengthening our law enforcement agencies, identifying wrongdoing, and ensuring that action is taken against those responsible. We are cleaning up our state-owned enterprises, many of which have taken steps to even recover misappropriated funds and pursue individuals and companies involved in wrongdoing. We acted swiftly to address allegations of corruption in COVID-19 related procurement. This includes a wide-ranging series of investigations by the Special Investigating Unit, which uncovered several instances of corruption and which has resulted in disciplinary and criminal action and steps to recover stolen funds. In responding to these outrageous acts of criminality in the midst of a national crisis, government has made significant strides towards a more robust approach to the prevention, detection, and prosecution of corruption. The establishment of a fusion center that brings together different law enforcement entities to share information and collaborate on the investigation of cases provides a very valuable model for future anti-corruption efforts. The online publication of all COVID-related contracts across all public entities has established a precedent for greater transparency in government procurement. One of the consequences of the work we've done and continue to do is that South Africans are seeing action taken against people accused of wrongdoing, and we are seeing funds being recovered. While it is disheartening to read on a daily basis about corruption allegations, it is significant that much of what is now in the public domain is the result of work being done by institutions like the SIU, the Hawks, the National Prosecuting Authority, and Auditor General, and others. Institutions charged with uncovering and prosecuting corruption are doing what is expected of them. It is important, as we rebuild these entities, that we demonstrate our confidence in their ability to investigate all allegations and to act without fear and favor. We must affirm the rule of law and the importance of due process. It is this principle that informs our approach also to recent allegations around the Minister of Health and certain contracts awarded by his department. These are serious and disturbing allegations, and it is therefore essential that they be thoroughly investigated by the SIU and any other appropriate authority, that these investigations be finalized without delay, and that the due legal process is followed. I had a discussion with the minister, and he is cooperating fully and completely on this matter. And what I can say to South Africans is that I'm dealing with this matter, and there's full cooperation from the minister. So let us allow this process to unfold, and thereafter we will know what needs to be done. An essential part of our national determination to end state capture is the work being done by the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. We are confident that the Commission will not only establish the extent and nature of state capture and enable us to hold those responsible to account. It will also provide valuable recommendations that will assist us in ensuring that corruption of this sort is never allowed to happen again. The Presidency is centrally involved in areas of work that are critical for a sustainable future for our country. The newly established Presidential Climate Change Commission is responsible for guiding South Africa's approach to climate change and setting out the path for a just transition to a low-carbon economy. The Commission brings together a wide range of expertise from government, from academia, from industry and civil society. It includes climate change NGOs, campaigners, and activists. It provides a platform to collectively shape policies and programs that support our international climate change obligations, including those contained in the Paris Agreement. The Commission has held several meetings and workshops this year to define its areas of work and to contribute to key policy outcomes such as the country's nationally determined contributions to the reduction of emissions. Now, through its transparent and evidence-based work, we foresee the Commission being able to provide a balanced and coherent approach to tackling climate change. Our country has, over the years, engaged robustly in climate change negotiations. As we head towards COP26, we will continue to support a just transition for those countries, such as those on the African continent, that contributed the least towards climate change but bear disproportionate costs from adverse climate events. So we will continue to draw attention to the need to support climate adaptation efforts in addition to climate mitigation. The envisaged financial support for developing economies to transition to low-carbon economies has not materialized. We will therefore continue to advocate for this support and will also mobilize appropriate climate finance for our national needs. So as we work to counter the damaging effects of previous industrial revolutions on the environment, we are also preparing to seize the opportunities of the new fourth industrial revolution for rapid sustainable development. So at the international level, as we move towards the COP conferences, the council that I've appointed, which I chair, which has former Minister Vali Musa as deputy chair, will continue to guide us and to lead us as well. In 2019, we established the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution to develop a country strategy that will make effective use of all the opportunities presented by rapid technological change. A project management office has been established in the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies to work with all critical stakeholders to oversee the implementation of the Commission's recommendations. This will see South Africa taking bold steps in areas like skills development, artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, e-government, and the development and deployment of 4IR infrastructure. Professor Chirizi Marwala is the deputy chair of the commission that we set up, and he, together with his commissioners, are doing valuable work to help us, to help the department as well, come up with all these ideas that will take our country forward when it comes to 4IR. The presidency is tasked with mobilizing government and all sectors of society to address critical social issues. Dark stain on our country. Despite significant efforts at raising public awareness and substantial stake resources being dedicated to fighting it, it continues unabated. It is approaching 2 years since we met in a joint sitting of Parliament to debate an emergency response action plan to respond to gender-based violence and femicide. The rollout of the emergency plan, as well as the implementation of the National Strategic Plan to combat gender-based violence, has been overseen by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities and the IMC on gender-based violence and femicide. The draft bill to establish a National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide is currently with the state law advisors. Therefore, it will go through cabinet and be released for public consultation soon. The minister in the presidency responsible for women, youth, and persons with disabilities will provide detail on the progress that has been made, the challenges that have been faced, and the priorities for the year ahead. It is a matter of great significance that the National Assembly will tomorrow engage in a second reading debate on 3 very important bills related to gender-based violence: the Criminal Law, Sexual Offences and Related Matters Amendment Bill, and the Domestic Violence Amendment Bill, and the Criminal and Related Matters Amendment Bill. I wish to commend Parliament for prioritizing these bills. The passage of these amendments will be a major victory that will strengthen our fight against gender-based violence and femicide. The presidency will continue its advocacy for the empowerment of women and the eradication of gender-based violence through our membership of the UN Gender Equality Initiative. The presidency is an important part of our national aspiration to build a better Africa and a better world. Our participation in global affairs is valued and respected both on the African continent and on the broader international stage. Our engagement in international forums is guided by our national interests and the interests of our continent. Our sister countries in Southern Africa have asked us as South Africa to chair the SADC organ troika, which actively participates in efforts to address regional conflicts and promote stability in the SADC region. At the global level, South Africa continues to support a rules-based multilateral order and advocates for reform to ensure fair representation to the global South. At the G7, where South Africa has once again been invited as a guest country, and at the G20, where the country is a member, we continue to advocate for global solidarity in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. This includes support for low and medium income countries to access vaccines, to access therapeutics and diagnostics, using all available instruments and channels, and to finance a robust economic recovery. The AU special envoys have played a crucial role in making the case for debt service suspension and the mobilization of new financing to support recovery efforts on the African continent. Now, on the issuance of special drawing rights to enable finance to be made available to countries by the IMF, we see this as a very important intervention. We will argue that the African continent, in addition to its quota-based allocation, should benefit from a reallocation of these SDRs that are destined for rich economies. This acknowledges that these countries, having enjoyed extensive stimulus programs, incurred at the very low interest rates or with unconventional monetary policy, are unlikely to draw on these special drawing rights. The presidency, through the G20 and G7 Sherpa, and in partnership with DERCO, our Sherpa being Trudy Makanya, my economic advisor, rallies various government departments to make contributions at various working groups and to support the president's engagement in these fora. So, honorable members, this is a time of year when we pay tribute to many young men and women whose courageous activism won us our freedom. We salute the young people of today who are confronting the legacy of our past, who are rising to the challenges of the present, and who are forging a future for a new society. The true test of a capable state is the extent to which it expands the frontiers of hope for every citizen, but most especially its young citizens. Our country is in an infinitely better place than it was in 1976 for young and old. At the same time, we know that the difficulties young people face today can be a source of despondency, of disillusionment, and even anger. We owe it to this generation and to future generations to fulfill the mission of our Constitution, to build a society based on democratic values, social justice, fundamental human rights. As the presidency, as the heartbeat of government, we will not relent until this promise is fulfilled. We will keep trying, and we will keep working hard to ensure that these ideals are fulfilled. We will acknowledge our weaknesses and act to correct them. We will continue to build on successes and intensify our efforts. I call on every member of this House and every South African listening today to be part of this effort of rebuilding our country. Our unity has forever been and will forever remain our greatest strength. I hereby commend this budget vote of the presidency to the National Assembly and look forward to what I trust will be a robust and constructive debate. Deputy Speaker, I thank you, and thank you to all honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next speaker is the Deputy Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. His Excellencies, the President,